precisely 6:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by J. Yogaraj and read by Sharifa Tahir. Headlines. First batch of Russia's Sputnik V vaccine to arrive today. State Minister Sudarshini Fernandopulle warns if the health guidelines are not followed properly, the situation might lead to a daily count between 8,000 to 10,000 corona infections. The Parliament is scheduled to convene at 10 a.m. today, with this week's Parliament sittings limited to just 2 days. Sri Lanka's daily coronavirus cases count climbs to 1,913. Total COVID-19 recoveries in Sri Lanka surpasses 98,000. Coronavirus death toll in Sri Lanka tops 700. News overseas, Joe Biden raises Trump refugee cap after outcry. And in sports, Manchester United protest, supporters group urges co-chairman to engage with fans. Local news in detail. State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana says that the first batch of Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine is expected to arrive in Sri Lanka. He stated that 15,000 doses of vaccine will arrive tonight as the first phase. Sri Lanka has decided to buy a total of 13 million doses of the Sputnik V vaccines from Russia. The National Medical Regulatory Authority on 4th of March approved the emergency use of Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine in Sri Lanka. Later, on the 23rd of March, the Cabinet of Ministers gave the nod to purchase 7 million doses of Russia-made Sputnik V coronavirus vaccine for $69.65 million. The purchase order was placed on the recommendation of the Cabinet-appointed negotiation committee. According to the Government Information Department, each vaccine will be purchased for $9.95. State Minister Sudarshini Fernandopulle warns if the health guidelines are not followed properly, the situation might lead to a daily count between 8,000 to 10,000 corona infections. The COVID-19 outbreak could still be brought under control, she added. However, it all depends on the cooperation extended by the public. The general public have to be very cautious and strictly follow the revised health guidelines without fail. The Parliament is scheduled to convene at 10 a.m. today, with this week's Parliament sittings limited to just 2 days. The party leaders agreed at the meeting of the Committee on Parliamentary Business held recently to pass an order under the Sri Lanka Export Development Act, 4 notifications under the Excise Ordinance, the Value Added Tax Amendment Bill, and the Inland Revenue Amendment Bill from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Secretary-General Dhammika Dasanayake said that no time would be allotted for oral questions of MPs and for questions under standing orders. He said an adjournment debate on the current situation in the country would be held tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. without a lunch break. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation giving you the news.
Receive early cash advances and an unmatchable bonus at maturity from Sri Lanka Insurance Early Cash.
Continuing with more stories here at home. The Epidemiology Unit of the Health Ministry reports that another 867 persons have been tested positive for COVID-19 in the country, pushing the daily total of new cases to 1,913 yesterday. All new cases reported were associated with the New Year COVID-19 cluster. This brings Sri Lanka's tally of positive COVID-19 cases confirmed thus far to 113,676. 14,771 patients infected with the virus are currently under medical care at hospitals and treatment centers across the country. Meanwhile, total recoveries stand at 98,209. The Director General of Health Services confirmed 13 more coronavirus-related deaths yesterday, increasing the death toll due to the virus pandemic to 709. The first deceased is a 44-year-old female resident in Divulapitiya. She was transferred from District General Hospital Karagal to the Teaching Hospital Anuradhapura, where she passed away on the 1st of May. The cause of death is mentioned as acute COVID pneumonia. A 70-year-old female resident in Jayala died on the 3rd of May while undergoing treatments in a private hospital in Colombo. The cause of death is mentioned as acute COVID pneumonia and hypertension. A 42-year-old male resident in Mavilmada was diagnosed as infected with COVID-19 while undergoing treatments in National Hospital Kandy and transferred to the base hospital Theldenia, where he died on the 2nd of May. The cause of death is mentioned as heart disease, acute COVID pneumonia and acute kidney injury. 68-year-old male resident in Nigambo passed away on the 1st of May while undergoing treatments in Krishnapura COVID Treatment Center in Kilinochi. The cause of death is mentioned as COVID pneumonia and multi-organ dysfunction. A 66-year-old male resident in Malabar died on the 2nd of May while undergoing treatments in IDH Hospital. The cause of death is mentioned as acute kidney failure, COVID pneumonia, hypertension, heart disease and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. An 82-year-old female resident in Malabar died on the 3rd of May while undergoing treatments at the IDH hospital. The cause of death is mentioned as COVID-19 infection and pneumonia. A 52-year-old male resident in Boralla died on the 2nd of May on admission to the National Hospital, Colombo. The cause of death is mentioned as acute respiratory distress syndrome, COVID pneumonia, hypertension, diabetes, and hypercholesterolemia. A 59-year-old male resident in Nuwara died on the 1st of May while undergoing treatments in a private hospital in Colombo. The cause of death is mentioned as acute respiratory distress syndrome, COVID pneumonia, heart disease, and diabetes. A 79-year-old female resident in Modera died on the 30th of April on admission to the National Hospital, Colombo. The cause of death is mentioned as COVID pneumonia, diabetes, and hypertension. A 68-year-old male resident in Nittambur died on the 3rd of May while undergoing treatments in Base Hospital, Vattupitivala. A 69-year-old female resident in Panadura was transferred from Base Hospital Panadura to the Teaching Hospital Anuradhapura, where she died on the 2nd of May. The deceased 77-year-old female resident from Bulat Singhala died on the 30th of April while undergoing treatments in the Base Hospital, Horana. The cause of death is mentioned as COVID pneumonia. An 80-year-old female resident in Gampaha was diagnosed as infected with COVID-19 virus and admitted to Kotalavala Defence University Hospital, where she died on the 3rd of May. The cause of death is mentioned as COVID pneumonia and multi-organ dysfunction. That's on local news.
Finished? You have one more hour to write the exam.
Yes, sir. Always early.
Receive early cash advances and an unmatchable bonus at maturity from Sri Lanka Insurance Early Cash.
A mother knows the pain of each member of the family. Siddhalepa, the trusted relief for aches and pains.
An effective therapy for relief from cold, sneezing, flu, headaches, swelling due to toothaches, rheumatic, discomforts, and muscular aches and pains. Siddhalepa, the Vedha Mahatmya in every home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedha Mahatmya.
The Attorney General has exhibited in the Colombo High Court 800 charges against former IGP Pujit Jayasundara and former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando in respect of those killed and injured in the Easter Sunday attacks. The AG's coordinating officer, Nishara Jayaratna, said that they have been charged in 2 separate trials at bar for murder, attempted murder, serious lapses and grave omissions to prevent the Easter Sunday bombings. That's our main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya. Brush your teeth twice a day for healthy teeth and gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, your trusted brands in oral care for many years.
Supiriviki Ayurvedic toothpaste for adults. Kakulu Ayurvedic toothpaste for kids. 9 Ayurvedic ingredients of Supiriviki will protect your teeth and strengthen your gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, products from Siddhalepa.
And on Watchlight, the commuters complained that long-distance buses are not available for after 8 p.m. Only few buses are available to some selected destinations. This has caused immense difficulties to the commuters travelling from city limits to outside districts. This is for the attention of the Western Province Passenger Transport Authority. That was on Watchlight. Moving on to world news now. Headlines. Joe Biden raises Trump refugee cap after outcry. India COVID pandemic, Delhi calls for army help amid crisis. South Africa to clamp down on captive lion breeding. World news in detail. President Joe Biden has lifted the U.S. annual refugee cap, bowing to backlash from his party after he initially opted to stick by the Trump-era figure. The Democratic president is raising the cap from $15,000 to $62,500 amid outrage from progressiveness and refugee agencies. Mr. Biden said the lower figure did not reflect America's values. Reports last month said he was concerned about letting in more people amid a record influx at the U.S.-Mexico border. The authorities in the Indian capital, Delhi, have called for help from the army as the city grapples with a brutal second wave of COVID-19 cases. Hospitals in the city are in crisis with intensive care beds full and an acute shortage of medical oxygen. Delhi's government wants the army to run COVID care facilities and intensive care units. Across India, case numbers since the start of outbreak are closing in on 20 million. Finally, on world news, South Africa will clamp down on captive lion breeding after a review panel concluded the industry risked the conservation of wild lions and harmed tourism, the Environment Minister said recently. In the nearly 600-page report, the panel appointed by the ministry in 2019 recommended that South Africa end the breeding and keeping of captive lions for economic gain, including hunting them and tourist interactions such as cub petting. That's on world news. Moving on to development news now. Gampaha Varanlavat, the Polytech Garments factory, which was closed due to COVID-19 outbreak, has now been converted to a corona treatment center. A sum of 10 million rupees has been spent on this project. The Sri Lankan Navy has extended its support to develop the infrastructure facilities for this purpose. That's on development news.
Sports news is brought to you by...
When Aya bought a motorbike, he bought 2 helmets. So sweet of him. I'm sure the other one is for me.
In whatever we do, we Sri Lankans are always thinking of others. When we get Munchie Super Cream Crackers, they're not just for ourselves. Munchie Super Cream Cracker. Super kiyanne nikan neve.
In sports news, soccer, the Manchester United Supporters Trust has urged co-chairman Joel Glazer to engage with fans to avoid a repeat of the protest at Old Trafford yesterday. United's Premier League match against Liverpool was called off after 200 fans broke into the ground. The Football Association is investigating the incident and said it understood fan frustrations.
My wife always sets a full lunch table even if it's just the 2 of us. She always expects people to drop by, like maybe the army.
In whatever we do, we Sri Lankans are always thinking of others. When we get Munchie Super Cream Crackers, they're not just for ourselves. Munchie Super Cream Cracker. Super kiyanne nikan neve.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The free trade zone's manufacturers are not facing any major difficulties and export orders have not dipped. For the month of April, the Katunayaka Export Processing Zone did around $350 million average exports, but in May this figure is expected to dip, according to Secretary Free Trade Zone Manufacturers Association, Dhamika Fernando. Exports of PPE goods have increased and a new local investor is pumping around 400 million rupees to building a new rubber gloves manufacturing facility in the zone. That's on Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Savings account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news, courtesy of saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Since announcing ADB's $20 billion support package in April last year, the Asian Development Bank has already committed $17.4 billion out of that package through grants, technical assistance, and loans to governments and businesses, and also mobilized $12.8 billion in co-financing. Masatsugu Asakawa, President Asian Development Bank, told the ASEAN Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting aired virtually yesterday. That's on Economic News.
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather Report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
The Met Department says the showery condition over the western, Sabaragamuwa, central, southern and Uva provinces is likely to enhance up to some extent during the next few days. Showers or thunder showers will occur in most parts of the island during the evening or night. Showers or thunder showers will occur in the western, southern and northwestern provinces during the morning too. Heavy rainfalls, about 100 millimeters, can be expected at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central and Uva provinces and in Galle, Mathura and Puranarwa districts. General public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. This weather report was published this morning at 4:30 a.m. Further details could be obtained by visiting the official website of the department. Weather Report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
Back to the headlines. First batch of Russia's Sputnik V vaccine to arrive today. State Minister Sudarshini Fernandopoulos warns if the health guidelines are not followed properly, the situation might lead to a daily count between 8,000 to 10,000 corona infections. The Parliament is scheduled to convene at 10 a.m. today, with this week's Parliament sittings limited to just 2 days. Sri Lanka's daily coronavirus cases count climbs to 1,913. Total COVID-19 recoveries in Sri Lanka surpass 98,000. Coronavirus death toll in Sri Lanka tops 700. News overseas, Joe Biden raises Trump refugee cap after outcry. And in sports, Manchester United protest supporters group urges co-chairman to engage with fans. With that, we conclude the morning bulletin of news.